How does an electrical engineer turn into the co-founder of one of India's most talked about skincare brand? Meet Tarun Sharma, co-founder and CEO of MCaffeine, who turned caffeine into a skincare revolution. Tarun's path to success is full of unique twists. From scaling a food startup to running a salon chain, Tarun has seen the startup world from every angle. In this conversation with Masters Union students, he shares how those experiences shaped his journey and led to the creation of MCaffeine. Let's hear it from the man who's done it all.
You started your career in technology. What inspired you to transition into the skincare industry, and why coffee-based skincare?
Technology happened. I think I wanted to take commerce. My father told me to take maths, engineering.
Okay.
So then I became an engineer. I gave IIT and then cleared IIT. Because of the rank and stuff, I ended up taking electrical engineering in a college which was known for mining. So then I realized कि ये ठीक तो नहीं जा रहा है. But then the college was great. I learned immense amount of things. Started studying electrical engineering in a college which was for mining, but ended taking up a job in computer sciences. Because I did a lot of stuff in college, I had this flair that I might not be the one who would continue to work. College, maybe I started something, earned about 5-6 lakhs in college in the final year. 5-6 lakhs as an LPA was something I realized कि आप धंधा करोगे ढंग से करोगे तो शायद पैसे बन जाते.
Correct.
Then I joined Mphasis, which was an HP company. HP is the laptop company. Mphasis is the software arm for it. And I must have been a super pain for my manager because मुझे नहीं आता था काम. And मैं सीख ही रहा था और मेरा मन भी कम लगता था. While I was in Mphasis, I started something in the crowdfunding space.
Okay.
And crowdfunding is very, very tricky in India. So we used to, take छोटा 1,000, 2,000, 3,000. But in India, you can't take more than money from more than 200 retail investors. Otherwise, वो public company बन जाती. तो हमें नहीं पता था कि ये सारे रूल्स वगैरह भी होते हैं. हमें तो लग रहा था एक प्रोजेक्ट है, इसमें 2 लाख रुपए लेने हैं. अगर हम 2,000 के 100 लोग ले आएंगे तो 2 लाख रुपए बन जाएंगे. While I was doing this, I met somebody from the startup ecosystem. Back in 2010-11, startups were not the thing. Startups were still considered कि अगर स्टार्टअप करोगे तो शादी नहीं होगी, तो पैसे नहीं मिलेंगे. और पापा मम्मी को समझाना भी पड़ेगा कि तुम अच्छी सी नौकरी क्यों छोड़ रहे हो, बड़े शहर जाके बड़े शहर की हवा लगी या नशे करने लगे. मतलब कुछ तो हुआ है कि तुम इतनी अच्छी नौकरी छोड़ के कुछ और करना चाहते हो. But I met very, very smart and I have a lot of respect for the entrepreneurs. Now it is called Eat Club. Earlier it was a food tech company. So आप देखते हो जितना भी quick service food tech हो रहा था. So I met them. I realized that कि यार ये तो business बहुत सही है. There are a lot of people, service है, product है. And obviously the crowdfunding thing was not working out. Then I joined them as a first employee of the company. There were 2 co-founders sitting in their room and 1 chef. That is where I got the first-hand experience of how something gets built.
This is Boxit.
This
right?
is Boxit.
This is Boxit.
In 2012. तब तक मैंने फिर Mphasis छोड़ दी थी because वो technology का stint तो उतना ही था.
Correct.
Boxit, I spent about 3 years, scaled the business with the founders from first outlet till the 40th outlet, from 3 people to 900 people. Did everything under the sun. मतलब मेरे को एक ही काम नहीं दिया था उन लोगों ने, बाकी सब दे देते थे. 2015 I decided that if I can do this, I've scaled it, थोड़ा समझ में आने लगा, should I start something on my own? That's where we came out. I came out and then gathered my co-founders in 2015. We were doing something else. And why I'm telling you this long story, because nothing pans out the way you have planned it. So we started something which was into home services,
Salon.
urban salon. Then we said home services नहीं चलेंगे, बहुत पैसे लगेंगे, मतलब बहुत funding लगेगी. So then we went into the OYO for salons. We picked up existing inventory, rebranded it, scaled it, because Boxit का धंधा ना पूरा hyperlocal होता है. You need to be in 3-kilometer areas to generate a lot of demand and then cater to that demand. So 12 salon किए, raised money, but we realized that India में अगर आपको बड़ा business बनाना है salons पे, it's a loss. मतलब it was not for us. I mean, the opportunity cost was high. But in salons we were developing products because हमें पता था कि salons में अगर आप aggregation कर रहे हो, so your margin expansion will happen if you serve your own product, except you're having L'Oreal's, etc. That is where we developed the first shampoo, the first face cream, the first conditioner, and we took a lot of industry people help. And that's where we got introduced to the world of cosmetology, dermatology, science of making the product, and art of creating the brand. And then we pivoted from salons to becoming a full-fledged consumer product brand in roughly 2016. Everything happened so fast. And that's how we came to skincare. And what we realized is that it is not just about making the right product. It is also about making sure that you have a right brand to display that product. If the difference between the psychology of the brand and physiology of the product, if the difference is small, is less, you have a better chance to penetrate the market. If the difference is high, wherein you're saying something and delivering something, there's a good chance you might require a lot of money to it.
So, sir, from Boxit to a salon chain and the journey between you and your co-founders, if you can double click on that, what was the process of making that small group of team and the transition? First, initially deciding that you guys will get into, you will make a salon chain, and then pivoting to something like what you're doing right now.
Yeah.
That whole journey and deciding how to make your co-founders, how to select, or how to have, what were the conversations between all of you? If you can tell us about something about that, because currently I think most of us are working on it, that you are looking to expand our teams. Currently we are also having our dropshipping challenge. Further,
Achha.
we will get into the VIP, which is the Venture Initiation Program. In fact, all of us are currently facing the problems of how do we decide whom to take as a co-founder. We always hear that complementing skills honi chahiye, but there is a lot of other things which are involved. Yeah, please.
I think complementary skill is more of in the office. क्या आपको टेक्नोलॉजी आती है, मेरे को बेचना आता है, तो ये complementary skills होती हैं. But historically, if you look at it, there's no template. And deciding a co-founder is almost deciding like you're getting into a marriage.
Correct.
So you can't have a template कि अच्छा तुमको ये आता है, तुम बच्चों को ये सिखा दोगी, मैं बच्चों को ये सिखा दूँ. ऐसा नहीं होता. Because if your business is your baby, you will figure it out whatever skills you would require. I didn't understand a word from balance sheet and P&L. अभी चमकता है, करके हो जाता है, right?
Correct.
But nobody is from finance. We are all engineers. One is from IIT Kharagpur, one is from, and all of us are from ISM Dhanbad. Now IIT Dhanbad.
Yeah.
तो इंजीनियर है, हमें तो नहीं आता था प्रोडक्ट बनाना, हमें तो नहीं आता था मार्केटिंग करना. ब्रांड तो बहुत ही it's super creative.
Correct.
But we are numbers driven. We understand numbers. We understand कि consumer के पास you need to be like the closest to the consumer. Skill set, I believe, is still a very academic point to kind
Correct.
of work on that you need to have. Obviously, you all can't have only one skill.
Correct.
If you all have one skill, you should be ready to diversify yourself and say that मेरे को ये करूँगा, लेकिन अभी बाकी 3 लोगों को ये करना पड़ेगा.
Right.
I think the foremost important thing is that are you okay to spend 10 to 15 to 20 years of your life with that co-founder? Because mathematically, data will tell you that you would spend the most amount of time with your co-founder than your wife. 12-16 घंटे काम करने पड़ेंगे. The maximum amount of stress in your personal life would be around कि यार मैं अपनी वाइफ को बाहर घुमाने ले जाता, और या वो उसने कोई प्लान बनाया, मैंने डिच कर दिया. The most of the issues are very palatable.
Correct.
यहाँ पर होगा सर्वाइवल.
Correct.
1200 लोगों की नौकरी, राइट, अगले महीने की सैलरी, इन्वेस्टर्स का प्रेशर, ना आते हुए फिगर आउट करना. So the amount of problems, and I'm not saying one is bad,
Yeah.
one is good, but fundamentally, can you spend 10 to 15 years with that person in a room fighting tooth and nail, but when you're going out of the room, nobody knows whose opinion was the decision.
Correct.
Right? So I think that chemistry, and I tell my partners that you are my co-founders, I'm your co-founder, we are all emotional partners. मतलब जब हालत खराब हो जाती है ना, तब फिर याद आता है कि यार उसको कॉल करके दुखड़ा रो लेता हूँ अपना कि
Correct.
नहीं हुआ जो मैं सेल करने गया था कल,
Correct.
बट परसों फिर निकलेंगे अपन,
Right.
और फिर करेंगे. So I think first and foremost you need to have a very strong comfort of building with this partner, because building is hard. मतलब if we believe that पहला राउंड हो जाएगा, फिर दूसरा राउंड हो जाएगा, एक मुर्गी अंडा मुर्गी चलता रहेगा, नहीं होता ऐसा. I mean I've invested in a business which जिसका valuation 2 साल में 20x हो गया, and I just got a notification the company shut. So longevity of business, mortality of startups, building is very, very hard. So hence, first is foremost, can you work with it? Can you fight? Can you still make sure that you have a common ground and common goal, and you're both excited enough to build it for the long run? Then comes your standard template कि अगर तीनों लोगों को अलग अलग काम आता है तो ठीक है, but there are multiple examples जहाँ पर शायद there are two people who came out of Amazon doing a similar kind of work, but one took an operational role, one took a product role and built Flipkart, which is one of the most exciting results or conclusions the startup ecosystem had, right? So I think template is simple to solve, but first and foremost हम दोनों रोज झगड़ सकते हैं, रोज बाहर निकल के अपनी टीम को मैनेज कर सकते हैं. अगर आपका कोई काम फंस रहा है और मेरी स्किल सेट नहीं हुई है तो कैन आई फिगर आउट दैट सॉल्यूशन? And if that bonding is right, I think you will travel through.
So दुनिया के template के अलावा, how does the conversation between the five of you take place? I
बहुत
mean,
लड़ते हैं.
decision. What is the final decision? I mean, how
There
does
has
the
to
final?
be a CEO.
Okay.
There has to be a CEO. Whether you're 5, whether you're 3, whether you're 2, there has to be a CEO whose neck is on the line. So when you are taking up a role, I'm taking up a role. Somebody's neck is on the line. So for example, if you're the CFO of my company, I'm the COO of my company. Operating matrices should be my KPI. It has to be performance driven. We are not making a family. We are making a sports team. It is performance driven.
Correct.
We all should be kind of driven by the performance we want to build. I should be questioned on my performance. You should be questioned on your performance. आखिरी में KPI बैठता है. But if there is a decision deadlock कि मैं operating matrix जो सर्विस की ठीक कर रहा हूँ उससे आपका capital flow change हो रहा है, there has to be one deciding person. So पहले दिन से हमारे यहाँ decided था that one person will take the CEO role. If you want to take a veto in your vertical, you should take a veto in your vertical. But if that veto is affecting the larger goal of the company, I will take a veto of that. But individually, आप सब अपने अपने काम करते हैं. मेरे पास
vertical के heads हैं. Yeah.
But if there is a decision deadlock, there is an analysis paralysis, I will take the call and move ahead because I don't think we can stop, we can slow down.
Correct.
So hence decision machinery बहुत तेजी से चलती रहे. There has to be one neck on the line for the entire company and there has to be the CEO. वो पहले दिन से decide होना चाहिए कि वो neck on the line किसकी होगी, वो decision कौन लेगा rather than calling it a
those
CEO.
things should be structured. उसके बाद में then just faster decision makes it better for the company.
Correct.
So sir, innovation and novelty are definitely key to McAfeen's success. McAfeen's success. How do you ensure that your product development is always innovative?
We are a very specific brand. We are
Right,
caffeine
exactly.
driven, right? We are experiential. But fundamentally, the framework runs in 4 places. First is the domestic research. कि भारत में क्या हो रहा है? You would go to all your search places, figure out that data. कि कौन सा ingredient trend कर रहा है, कौन सा concern trend कर रहा है, कौन सा Instagram trend कर रहा है. Domestic research. Then you would go to international research. Because what happens in India probably now is happening in 3 to 5 years.
Correct.
Earlier it used to be higher, 7 to 10 years,
correct.
right? So you go to international, आप देखो अपने space में क्या क्या चल रहा है, कौन सी brand breakout कर रही है, so on and so forth, right? Then when we were small, we used to take calls, very, very long calls for the consumers. If we didn't have consumer, we used to go to the mall, we used to go to, मतलब हमारा ना बाथरूम झांकने का बिजनेस है. अगर आप वैसे देखो तो हम अपने दोस्तों के घर जाते थे, ये क्यों खरीदा, ये क्यों खरीदा, ये मुझे मेरे सलोन वाले ने बताया, तू मान क्यों गई तू.
Correct.
इतना परेशान करते थे मैं अपने दोस्तों को because they are the consumers.
Correct.
मैं शायद इन्हीं ढूंढूंगा. These are my target audience
Correct.
in all aspects. The consumer. So that's a third front. Fourth front is institution. So typically, if you're making a D2C brand in consumer packaged goods, institutions play a very big role. तो हमारे स्पेस में बहुत सारे प्रोडक्ट सलोन से निकलते हैं. Map it for the last 25 years. You never had a mayonnaise bottle lying on the shelf. It was always in the restaurant first. So we do this 4-pronged. Now, because we have a lot of data on first, which is the domestic research, we have incredible amount of data on the third, which is consumer research, our own consumers. Right? So we get about 2.7 million hits on our website. Only the search tab of my website yields me 20,000 hits. It's 1% only. But 20,000 hits. वो search कर रहे हैं body scrub in a certain texture or with a certain fragrance. That's a product idea for me because that's a high intent consumer coming on my website.
Correct.
So that has evolved a lot. Institution, we spend most of our times in salons and spas to understand कि वहाँ पर किस तरीके का breakout हो रहा है. यहाँ पर आपको 3 layers मिलेंगी. One, from a product category standpoint or innovation standpoint. First is crowd of product. मतलब लोग सर्च कर रहे हैं कि मेरे को एक और बॉडी वॉश चाहिए, ये और चाहिए. crowd product. You need to have hygiene product. You need to have that assortment. Then challenger, sunscreen, but not sticky, lightweight, tinted. This is challenger. कि normal sunscreen है आपके पास SPF 50, PA+++. But challenger, there is pushing the envelope. Then there is disruptor. So there are 3 types of product we have: disruptors, challengers, crowders. ये तीनों तरीके के products बहुत अलग-अलग जगहों से आते हैं.
Right.
And hence we believe that some of our frameworks trigger disruptors more. Some of our frameworks trigger the crowders and challengers more. And this makes sure that there is a healthy mix of 1:2:5. अगर मैं एक disruptor product निकाल रहा हूँ जो भारत में हुआ ही नहीं है, मेरे को शायद 2 challenger भी निकालने पड़ेंगे, because disruptor का market छोटा होगा, but it will be high decibel. It will be pushing the envelope. But at the end of the day, you will buy 1 disruptor for me, but you will have your face washes, body washes, etc. तो मुझे problem. So that's the broad framework of NPD or product development for us.
And sir, in depth, जैसे I think it won't be wrong to say that your main target market is the millennials.
Yes.
Right. So what is the structure in terms of how does your company read what millennials are wanting? What is the back office story of creating these campaigns? How does that structure look like?
I think all data driven. So we believe that marketeers now are creative because they're living on Instagram. They know, I mean, you guys would be better than me in posting on Instagram and figuring out how do you get engagement, right? So that part of understanding the audience शायद inherently subconscious हो गया है. But obviously there has to be a certain structure on which you scale your marketing. But it is all data driven. So millennials for us is the third part of the framework.
Okay.
We would personally, as co-founders, we would personally speak to, amongst the 5 of us, we would personally speak to close to about 300 to 400 consumers every month still. Till we hit 100 crores of scale, and अब तो शायद packs expire हो गए होंगे. If you would have bought our product in 2018, 19, 20, the number on the pack, the product pack, as a customer care number used to be my number. And super weird, super funneled. Because आपने product खरीद लिया, अब आपको कोई दिक्कत है ना, तो आप मुझे कॉल करोगे.
Right.
But order deliver नहीं हुआ तो फिर वेबसाइट के नंबर पे जाओगे.
हाँ.
And रात को 12 बजे कॉल आते थे, 5 बजे कॉल आते थे, रात को 3 बजे कॉल आते थे कि मेरी ना ढक्कन नहीं खुल रही.
They would be expecting that it's a customer care.
It's a customer care and मैं कॉल कर रही हूँ तो उठाएगा कोई, क्योंकि कोई तो होगा, नंबर दिया है. And I used to pick up a call at 3 in the night and 5 o'clock in the morning. And the data point is that customer शायद आपका प्रोडक्ट जो सुबह 5 बजे लगा रहा है ना, उसका एक्सपीरियंस फ्रिक्शन है थोड़ा सा, वो ढक्कन नहीं खुल रहा, पंप नहीं चल रहा. These are big data points for me to go back and solve for packaging. And फिर weird stories तो होती थी कि रात को 12 बजे मेरे रूम से आवाज आती थी, नहीं सर आप ना इसको हथेली में थोड़ा सा लीजिए, पानी लगाइए, गोल अपनी गर्दन पे गोल गोल घुमाइए. And my roommate used to think, क्या रहे हो तुम अंदर? I don't know तुम्हारा धंधा कैसे चल रहा है, but these are not the charts I subscribe for. So I think consumer focus बहुत ही strong है. अब मिलेनियल्स की भी ना डेफिनेशन चेंज हो गई है, जेंसी की डेफिनेशन सबको अलग अलग समझ में आते हैं. बट हमें लगता है कि हमारा कंज्यूमर बेस 18 to 35 है, लार्ज. 22 to 27 मैक्सिमम बल्क ऑफ कंजम्पशन हैपेंस. वी मेक श्योर वी कीप ऑन स्पीकिंग टू देम पर्सनली. दीज कॉल्स 300 to 500 कॉल्स आर टिपिकली 20 to 22 minutes ईच, एंड बहुत ज्ञान मिलता है. एंड इसके ऊपर देयर इज अ लॉट ऑफ एनालिटिक्स वी डू ऑन सोशल. CTR कैसा चल रहा है, सेव्स कैसे चल रहे हैं, शेयर्स कैसा चल रहा है, एंगेजमेंट कैसा है, रीच कैसी है, प्रोडक्ट के NPSs कैसे हैं. एंड इफेक्टिवली इफ यू मैप ऑल द डेटा एंड build some very smart analytics around it, you keep on institutionalizing the inciting machine.
Correct.
But one can't, offset the 300 calls which we have with the consumers. Plus FGD होते हैं, ऑफिस बुलाते हैं हम लोगों को, उनसे बैठ के बात करते हैं, तो काफी इवॉल्व्ड सा इंस्टीट्यूशनलाइज्ड सा प्रोसेस है.
How do you define a culture in your company? What were the tough calls you had to make, and what your story has been?
तो बहुत टाइम लगा हमें कल्चर को ना डिस्टिल करके आर्टिकुलेट करने में. Obviously there were a lot of things which were actioned. हम कैसे काम करते हैं, हमको किस तरीके के लोग से ज्यादा ट्यूनिंग बैठती है, so on and so forth, right? And we spent a lot of time in distilling what we understand from culture. There are 2 schools of thoughts. One is making a family. कि
Right.
हम तो साथ में प्यार प्यार से काम करेंगे. But at the end of the day, you're building a business in a cutthroat competition where it is you've raised capital, you have to deliver. So very early on, we decided that we are a sports team, which essentially means we are performance driven. We might fail, we might lose. Today might not be our day, but at the end of the day, everybody is driven by the performance, not the corporate performance, but
Right.
as a sports team, you have a role, I have a role.
Right.
The good part of managing a sports team or building a sports team is that a very junior guy in the team from under 19 coming to play in the national squad can still have a say to Dhoni
Right.
कि भाई भाई ऐसा मारो ना,
Correct.
because he has played on that pitch probably,
Right.
right? So the ability to transfer and make it more inclusive, transparent, sports team is the best example for it. While a coach can change, a captain role can change, a vice captain can change. आज आपने 100 मारा, कल मैं 100 मारूं. But at the end of the day, the team has a common goal. Over time, we said, what does it mean? समझा दिया sport, but होगा क्या मतलब?
Correct. Exactly.
We distilled it in 5 H's. Right? Said, first of all, at core, we are very hungry. कुछ बनाना है, कुछ बनाना है, कुछ बनाना है. मतलब इंजीनियरिंग, माइनिंग कॉलेज, इलेक्ट्रिकल, आईटी, खाना, बाल काटना, अब आप स्क्रब लगा रहे हो. It's a ride, right? But fundamentally, you're very, very hungry.
Right.
So one has to be very hungry of whatever they do. If you're making Instagram post, you should be hungry. If you're packing your boxes of D2C orders, hunger होना चाहिए. Second, if you're hungry, you need to have hustle. Because सिर्फ भूखे रहोगे ना कुछ होगा नहीं. मतलब you have to do a lot of मेहनत around finding answers to the problems which were never existent 5 years back. You don't have the resources to solve it the way other guys are solving it. Hustle karo, get answers. You need to be really, really honest about whatever you've done. आज मेरा ROI 5x हो गया, तो I'm the star of Meta. ऐसा नहीं होगा. कल Meta 1 पे ले आएगा. You need to be really, really honest about the successes, more for failures. गलती हो गई यार, ठीक है, laugh it off, learn, and कल फिर से करते हैं. So if you're hungry, hustling, honest, most often than not, you're in the right curve. Where you will fall from the curve is when you will think you are probably bigger than anybody in or the organization or the consumers. So humility plays a big part. तो complacency मत आन दो. हमने जब MCaffeine 250-300 करोड़ तक scale कर दी, when we were doing Hyphen, we used to tell we will fail in this organization, we will fail in this brand if we don't do these things right. तो अगर आप replicate नहीं करोगे, there you don't assume कि Hyphen बन जाएगा because MCaffeine, right? So you need to be really humble, very forget about arrogance and complacency, keep it outside. And if you're doing all these 4 things, you are almost there, and you need to have super fun. So humor भी एक 5वां H है, जहाँ बहुत बकर काटते हैं, बहुत मजाक करते हैं, और अपनी सारी गलतियों का हम typically use humor to disarm the seriousness around the mistake. Once my supply chain guy was supposed to order 1 lakh pieces, 1 0 ज्यादा लग गया. ठीक है, अभी पता ही नहीं चला, तो छोटी गाड़ी आती थी. फिर वेयरहाउस से कॉल आया, सर बहुत बड़ी गाड़ी आई है, किसी और का माल होगा यार, मतलब तो अपना उतार ले. बोले सर सब टाइम क्या फील मैं कहा है वर्किंग कैपिटल. इफ यू नाउ नोट, आप 2 महीने का माल रखते हो 1 लाख, अब आप 10x माल रख रहे हो. क्यों, मतलब द फाइनेंस गाय वाज रनिंग इन द ऑफिस. में कहा ये एक भागा, सप्लाई वाला भाग रहा है, मेरे पास फोन आ रहे हैं. मैं कहा एक काम कर, वीडियो कॉल पे आ जाओ. वीडियो कॉल देखा तो इतना बड़ा ट्रक मैंने आज तक नहीं देखा है इसके लिए. भाई इसका माल आ गया है. मैं कहा काम कर, दिखा और बड़े बड़े बॉक्स रखे. अब आरसीए करोगे, क्या करोगे, पर ट्रक तो खड़ा है, उसको पैसे देने. करेक्ट. तो आई कॉल्ड द गाय, एक बार दिखाओ शीट. तो उसमें यार 1 0 ज्यादा लग गया. मैं कहा लग गया अब तो. देन वी स्टार्टेड मेकिंग फन ऑफ इट कि ये 0 वहां लग जाता, ये 0 यहाँ लग जाता. सेल्स वालों को बुलाया, 1 0 तू भी लगा दिया कर. एंड बंदे को तो लग रहा था कि गई मेरी नौकरी. We said अब चलो फिगर आउट करते हैं. Then we utilized that packaging something else, spent some bit in working capital, spoke to the vendor कि भाई तेरे पास भी जब 10x आया था तो फोन तो करना था ना, तूने भी फोन नहीं किया. थोड़ा इधर-उधर करके we managed.
Right.
But the idea was that disarm the seriousness of building by using humor and have fun. ताकि सोते समय you're not very serious about it कि क्या हो गया like.
I
That's a
think
fine
also to make a note, I think your average age of workforce is also less than 40. I think
Average
average.
age is less than 40.
I mean, your workforce is
Job.
also very young. I
हाँ
think.
24 साल है यार.
हाँ वो हाँ.
I just had a kid. He's 2 months old. हम सोच रहे हैं उसका भी payroll पे डाल दें और age कम हो जाए. No, it is like 24, 25,
Okay.
very young kids. 70% of my leadership, the one who's leading NPD strategy with me, the one who's leading formulation development, the one who's leading the entire planning of a 600 crore worth of consumer sales, the one who's leading supply chain, the one who's leading growth strategy, all were hired as freshers. Now they manage such large business units very professionally. So I think हमारा हर समय वो रहा है कि step up कराओ लोगों को.
Okay.
And hence we have always hired early, scaled them up, and me and Vikas probably are the ones who are above 35.
You all started as a D2C brand.
Ji.
Currently, you are into multiple segments for your distribution offline
Ji.
as well. How was that transition period?
I will give you a broad framework on how to think for a digital brand. D2C is your channel.
Fair.
D2C is direct to consumer, your app, your website. Distribution comes the third. First, you need to figure out who is your consumer. So if Nivedita is my consumer and she is buying so and so products in the category and she's graduating to different categories, I would figure out whether I as a brand is a placeholder, a meaningful purpose in her life. If I'm a placeholder, she'll forget about me. If a meaningful purpose, solving something, giving value, I think she'll continue to remember me, right? So consumer समझ लो, उसके हिसाब से category बना लो. The moment you have understood the consumer, and that is why one should never think that now my business is 1,000 crores. अभी मैं consumer से क्यों बात करूं? Consumer से बात करते रहो, बाकी सारा काम figure out किसी और से करवा लो अगर busy हो तो. So consumer category. Whenever you figure out the consumer and the category, figure out the best channels, and that is where GTM, D2C, etc. comes in, because the moment you're trying to solve it without the context of consumer and category, it's going to be a nightmare. Somebody will say, यार एक काम करो, सिर्फ अपनी वेबसाइट पे बेचो. आपका AOV 200 रुपए मत बेचो, कोई कॉमर्स पे जाओ. AOV 200 रुपए क्यों है? क्योंकि आपके कंज्यूमर को 50 रुपए से ज्यादा देने का ही नहीं उस कैटेगरी में. भाई उतनी वैल्यू 30 का खरीद रही है, शायद 50 दे देगी, राइट? फंडामेंटली कंज्यूमर कैटेगरी से चैनल डिफाइन करो to generate cash in the company and make it the culture. So these are the 5 C's of when we think about any brand, when we thought about D2C Hyphen. So Hyphen was the second brand. We had consumer hai, category hai, bana liya proposition. The first channel we went to is D2C. Because the AOV was 800 rupees, 1000 rupees.
Right.
It made sense. But अगर हम 99 रुपए की लिपस्टिक निकालेंगे हम D2C नहीं कर पाएंगे. So when you're thinking about the channel, be very, very, very clear about whom you're selling. Because everybody is on Instagram, everybody is on YouTube. वैसे decide करोगे तो फिर D2C करना ही पड़ेगा, right? But when you are deciding for the right channels, keep 2 to 3 proof of concepts. First is D2C, बनाओ, बनता है, देखो, सीखो.
Right.
But then pick up formats of channels. So if you're selling on Amazon, you will have to be the sellers. So it's a marketplace for a reason. Pick up one marketplace where you can build the playbook of marketplace. कि कल को आपने Amazon पे playbook बना ली तो कल को उसको Flipkart पे कर दो, Myntra पे कर दो, Purple पे कर दो. Third cohort पकड़ लो, which is B2B, Nykaa, quick commerce, where you are selling to the platform. Platform is selling to the consumer. In a marketplace, you are selling directly to the consumer via the platform. If you choose 3 channels, make playbooks around it, decrease your chances of learning everything at once, distill it out, spend enough time. The moment you feel that there's a critical mass achieved, then scale the playbooks to different channels in the same category. While all these things are different, I think principally consumer same ही हो जाता है, economic same ही रहता है.
Right.
D2C जब आप सीखोगे तो you will have to do a lot of stuff. You'll have to do marketing, you'll have to do logistics, you'll have to do tech, etc. On B2B, you have to do the least amount of thing. You have to just work with the key account manager of the channel.
Right.
Marketplace would be somewhere in between. And in terms of problems, the biggest problem which one faces is that D2C as in the pure play, mcaffeine.com, hyphen.com, very difficult to make unit economics works. CAC बहुत high होता है, logistics cost होता है, RT होता है, right? Because you are reinventing what Amazon and Nykaa has done over time, right? Be very, very cautious of that. Don't be in that cowboy attitude कि अच्छा पैसा डाला और scale कर देंगे. Unit economics sense बना रही है कि नहीं?
Right.
In B2B, figure out what is selling, why it is selling, because your distance between the consumer is very high. D2C mein, you know the consumer. So here you are getting something, you're
Right.
not. Spend time there. Figure out if there is a commonality, and
Right.
that's the best leverage you have. If the commonality is यही product बिकता है, if the commonality is ये 4 शहरों में बिकता है, then your marketing becomes extremely efficient and product development becomes extremely efficient. And that's how you build a leverage on scaling. The way it is 5C for working in this business, there are 4 E's for working in the brand. आप कोई भी brand बना रहे हो और आप young जनता के लिए बना रहे हो, elevated proposition है. It's not your usual brand which has been done and dusted in the past. Fundamentally, 4 E's is what would make sure that you have got it right, keep on executing, and probably you will have right to exist for a decades and multiple decades. The first is efficacy. Trends would come, trends would go. What will not change is Nivedita's ask for an efficacious product, right? So efficacy is the most important stuff. आप कुछ भी कर रहे हो, आपके business की, आपके brand की, आपके product की efficacy जिस भी तरीके से नापी जाती है, you need to be very, very clear. And you can move mountains in the company, fight with anybody if your efficacy is something which is being compromised. With efficacies, this whole new consumption audience wants ethos. In our space, clean label. We should be vegan. We should be natural. We should not test on animals. We should not make a fairness claim. Ethos. But the moment you club efficacy and ethos, it becomes very harder to build. How do you make a tasty product which is very, very healthy? Because health is a proposition, right? Because हमको taste चाहिए. How do you build a shampoo which doesn't give you a सुनहरे बाल without silicon? Silicon डालते हो, उसी से दिखता है वो, उसी से वो the layer, right? How do you make it? Very, very difficult. So management needs to be really focused on it. So efficacy होनी चाहिए, ethos होनी चाहिए. You all are a no savings economy. You don't save, right? You spend. YOLO, right? Fundamentally, you are slightly more experiential than the previous generation. The experience चाहिए. अब आप हमारे वो जो कॉफी कप पड़ा हुआ, every coffee cup is like that. Slightly change the texture of the paper. जब वो पकड़ोगे, subconsciously अंगूठा लगाना चालू कर दो, right? कुछ होगा तो पढ़ना चालू कर दो, right? कुछ प्ले करना चालू कर दो. There are small experience pointers which you can build it across the product chain. Packaging is the first one to start. हम body scrub बेचते हैं, right? अभी या मैं बहुत usual user हूँ product का, तो मैंने कहा ये तो कैसे लग ही नहीं सकता. And बहुत simple सी कहानी है हमारी कि हम ना जहाँ भी देखते रहते हैं तो observe करते रहते हैं कि क्या चल रहा है. फिर हम पांचों लोग कहीं पर we were out for a party, the 5 co-founders, and उसने ना हमें we were obviously drinking, so हमें ना जो पीनट्स पड़े हुए थे उसको खाने के लिए बहुत ही क्यूट सा चम्मच दे रखा था. एंड हमने यार ये कितना सही है यार, बॉडी स्क्रब में कितना सही जाएगा. लकड़ी का था, वो पेपर का था. दैट चम्मच गॉट, आई मीन वी वुड हैव सोल्ड चम्मच. पीपल यूज्ड टू आस्क अस एज की चेन कि मैंने बॉडी स्क्रब खरीद लिया, मेरे पास है, मुझे चम्मच और खरीदने हैं लोगों के लिए. एक्सपीरियंस, राइट? द गिफ्ट बॉक्स, the fragrance, the texture. You can work around experience. You can add it. If you are focused, multiple points होते हैं. Add a layer of experience in your product. If you are not, there is a good chance people will devalue the product because there is no experience layer, right? तो आप 500 मांग रहे हो, शायद कस्टमर बोलेगा 450 का, right? But experience add कर दो, शायद कंज्यूमर 500 पे मान जाए या 550 भी दे. But if you're building an efficacious product with a lot of ethos, with experience inbuilt, at the end of the day, as a brand, what are you creating? You're creating an invisible emotional currency in the consumer's head, which neither I can see, neither you can see, as my competition, right? So, emotional value, emotion trigger करना पड़ेगा कोई एक या दो, सारे नहीं कर सकते, एक या दो emotion रखेंगे, right? Whether I'm a sensorially high brand, whether I'm experientially high brand, right? Whether when you think about real beauty, you think about one brand. And obviously in a lot of categories which are around sexual wellness, people try to do that a lot. Emotion banana hai aapko, right? So efficacy, ethos, experience and emotion. If you keep on working on these 4 quadrants of the brand, keep on intersecting, the most amount of intersection of all 4 will be the most stickiest product line of your brand. The least will be the least relevant in future. मैं 1 साल बेच लूंगा 200 मतलब 20-30 करोड़ रुपए का बेच दूंगा, बट उसके बाद वो longevity शायद नहीं रहेगी 20 साल की, 10 साल की, right? So for longevity or staying relevant, you need to focus on this. But at the end of the day, the consumers are changing fast. Go back to the consumer, ask as much as questions to understand whether you are becoming irrelevant in consumption, in thought process, etc., etc. So be the closest to the consumer is the easiest answer. But from a framework perspective, just keep on working on those 4 things. Fundamentally, you're a salesperson if you're starting a business. You're selling your team members, you're selling your co-founders, you're selling your vendors, you're selling your investors. Sales करना ना, मतलब आप अगर उसे कन्विंस नहीं कर पा रहे हो कि 1000 पीस उठाने हैं, क्यों? क्योंकि जब वो 5 साल बाद आपकी ब्रांड को पेपरों में छपते हुए देखेगा तो बोलेगा पहला ऑर्डर मैंने लगाया था. कहानी मतलब आप तो शाहरुख खान के देश से हैं, मतलब कहानियां सुना के रही. At the end of the day, you need to keep them excited, make them excited about your venture. You would yourself have to put yourself on the line by selling कि सर मतलब मेरी सैलरी 60 लाख रुपए थी सर, छोड़ के आया हूँ, ये कर रहा हूँ, आज 1000 पीस बनाने के पैसे हैं क्योंकि मेरे पास अभी सेल नहीं है, बट फिर लाख पीसेस आएंगे तो अभी तो आप ही को दूंगा ना. तो you sell yourself, your venture, your idea, because if you go by the standard rule of MOQ, फिर तो छोटे धंधे चालू कैसे होंगे, right? So at the end of the day, it starts from there. We used to do our own R&D, we still do our own R&D. तो हमें थोड़ा सा formulation का पता था, MOQs का पता था. We could be a bit more, you know, कि ये ingredient तो 10 किलो में आ जाता है ना सर, लगेगा तो 12 ही kg ना, तो हो जाएगा काम आपका, etc. etc. But we have always went to those cases जहाँ पर we didn't understand कि पहले दिन से सारी dynamics of supply chain. मतलब if nobody can do it, I will call up and I will keep on talking to them till the time they will say कि हाँ भाई ये लड़का आया है. ऐसे नहीं लोग आते मेरे पास जनरली लोग आते हैं जो यहाँ पर जिनको काम है, मतलब सर मुझे बोला है 5000 पीस का, प्लीज कर दो ना, मेरा इंसेंटिव मिल जाएगा, एक्सेट्रा एक्सेट्रा, विच इज देयर डे जॉब. आई मीन दे आर डूइंग देयर डे जॉब वेल, बट मैं तो माई लाइफ इज एट स्टेक सर. तो आधा घंटा लगेगा, 1 घंटा लगेगा, 2 घंटे लगेगा, अहमदाबाद आ जाऊंगा, दिल्ली आ जाऊंगा, आप बताओ करना क्या है, बिकॉज आई कैन ओनली बाय 1000 पीसेस एंड वी स्टिल डू इट. वी स्टिल बाय इन सम ऑफ आवर अर्ली लाइन्स. हम अभी भी MOQ पे नहीं खरीदते बिकॉज उस लाइन की तो सेल अभी है ही नहीं ना. तो वी डोंट यूज द वेट ऑफ द कंपनी कि देखो यार हम तो इतनी बड़ी कंपनी है, पैसे तो दे देंगे. फॉर्मेट सिंपल है, अगर आप छोटे हो, आपकी लाइन छोटी है, बेचो खुद को. इफ द एंट्री पॉइंट इज सो स्मॉलर वेयर इन one can launch on Amazon 1000 pieces and can figure out what is working. That's the strength of internet. That's the strength of digital distribution. It will always have a lot of entrants which might not have the rightful interest of the category. Might be perverse incentives. Yeah, label change कर दो. मेरा mine is a vitamin C body wash, तो इसके काम orange कर दो. Coffee वाला है तो brown कर दो. But you're not working on the R&D. The shampoo is same. The body wash is same. So we realized over the long run, the beer and froth will separate itself only on the basis of a great quality product. So invest. If you don't understand R&D, we didn't understand. So all our co-founders said कि चलो यार R&D सीखेंगे. So we brought in a very senior experts from who are ex-Unilever, spent about 20 years to learn from them. Full time तो hire कर नहीं सकते थे, पैसे नहीं थे. So we said आप advisory board पे आओ. We will be the best students of your class. And we used to learn a lot of chemistry from. So R&D पे focus from day one रहा है. And I think for 20 more years it will continue to be like that. Right? So learning is generally hard in any cases. But since you're an engineer, chemistry पढ़ी होती है तो आपको पता होता है अच्छा ये oil emulsion है, ये water emulsion है, सर जो समझा रहे हैं समझ आ रहा है. And then obviously you work with the manufacturers as well to understand कि इसकी practical application क्या होती है. 300 के RPM पे घुमाओगे तो sticky ज़्यादा हो जाएगा, 350 घुमाओ तो ऐसा हो जाएगा. You are at it as a student, right? But as a company, the focus was very clear. हम R&D नहीं छोड़ेंगे. And I still head NPD. I think I will continue to head NPD till years to come because I believe consumer का distillation शायद यहीं पर है. And that's the DNA of the company. So that is one. We didn't have money. तो हमें ना figure out करना था कि कैसे घुसें. So our easiest path to enter through the door of a consumer is where there is least competition. Scrub में ना कोई झगड़ ही नहीं रहा. सब कहते स्क्रब वाले लड़के क्या ही करोगे तुम लोग, राइट? बिकता तो साबुन है देश में, फिर साबुन के बाद बॉडी वॉश बिकता है. बट हम कंज्यूमर से बात करते थे, कंज्यूमर कहते थे कि मैं ना एसी के घर में रहती हूँ, एसी की कैब से जाती हूँ, एसी के ऑफिस में बैठती हूँ. तो वो जो पूरा साबुन का ऑरा था ना कि मैं बाइक से निकलता हूँ, धूल मिट्टी में जाता हूँ, हैंडपंप पे नहाता हूँ, नहीं हूँ अभी तो है ही नहीं कंज्यूमर यार. They will need a new product. So it's an unmet need. There's no competition. So the first 50 crores of the sales, our contribution of body scrub used to be upwards of 50%. Which essentially means we used to acquire consumers from body scrub. Then, without spending a lot of money on face wash, which is the most competitive category in the country, we graduate them. क्या आपको मेरा brand अच्छा लगा, product अच्छा लगा? Here's my face wash. Right? So the entry through the door should always be from a product which is the least competitive in your portfolio.
There are a lot of aspiring entrepreneurs here. As an investor, what are the main key qualities or key frameworks you look at before making an investment?
I don't invest very often.
Okay.
तो अभी तक 20-22 धंधों में पैसे डाले हैं.
Okay.
A lot of them have closed down. It is probably my MBA fees to learn. So food में डाला है. Beauty personal care, obviously it's a conflict of interest, so we don't. But in rare cases, there's one startup we have done. Sorry, in beauty personal care, one we have done with obviously permission from the board, investors, etc., etc. A lot of consumer brand enablers, sort of
Right.
consumer tech companies, and the idea is to learn. So if somebody is building on top of Shopify, मतलब हमको सीखना है because it is an unfair advantage for us to be ahead of the curve, right?
Right.
Food generally, because I believe that food as a business, D2C की जब बात करते हैं तो food को D2C में नहीं add करना चाहिए. It's an offline first, low AOV, low gross margin as compared to beauty, right?
Right.
So it is only to learn. Typically, most of it has come from friends.
Okay.
So some of my entrepreneur friends are investing, तो उन्होंने बोला before investing, after investing, it's very hard to spend time. So typically, I make up that point that time नहीं रहेगा. So if there is something, we'll not posture each other. Phone कर देना, क्या फटा है बता देना, मैं तुझे solution बता दूंगा. Because I'm not doing it for the full time.
Right.
If I have to invest one more hour,
Correct.
I will invest in Caffeine and Hyphen. What do we look at? We look at entrepreneurs who are exceptionally passionate, exceptionally driven. बहुत मेहनत लगती है. मतलब
Absolutely.
धंधा बनाने में बहुत ज्यादा हालत खराब हो जाती है. तो हमें लगता है कि if it is that Rocky dialogue, right? It is not it's not about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you get hit and still stand.
Yes.
Market मारेगा, competition मारेगा, सब. But आपको रिंग में खड़े रहना है. If you survive long enough, you will be succeeding. We just speak for half an hour, 1 hour to understand that. Most of the time goes into that, and second, some bit of understanding है अपने धंधे की understanding है, consumer की understanding है, insight क्या है, what is why you will do it, why somebody else can't.
Right.
Basic चीजें होती हैं, but 45 minutes only on if you are doing something. 20 साल क्यों करते रहोगे यार? हर समय वो एक पॉइंट आएगा जहां पर आप अपनी अपॉर्चुनिटी कॉस्ट बहुत ढंग से मैनेज कर रहे होगे.
Correct.
और बोलोगे कि यार इसको बंद करके मैं कल फंड रेज करूंगा तो मेरे को 20 करोड़ मिल जाएंगे, probably at 180 crores प्री मनी, so I will be 150 करोड़ तो मेरा हो ही जाएगा.
Correct.
But on paper ही होगा.
Correct.
तो I think we look for that, but not invest actively. As it was 4E for brand, 5Cs for business. There are 6 Ps for fundamentally figuring out whether you are on the right track or not. Define your proposition very, very, very strictly. मतलब बहुत आसान होता है कि हमें हाइफन में सोचना कि there's a celebrity brand will be built. There are 85 celebrity brands which came in the last 10 years, only 3 survived. So, and with the large companies, right, they had the muscle to not die. Proposition is the most important part. What are you promising the consumer? Why are you doing this? So proposition is something you should spend a lot of time. Sharply define it, differentiate it, understand from the consumer कि उन्हें क्या चाहिए और वहाँ आपकी fitment है कि नहीं. Right? So proposition. On the proposition, it's a promise. Make a product which marries or promises the proposition. You can't make a healthy snack bar with all the sugar in it, right? So proposition, product. But if you're doing it rightly, you need to price it really, really well. इंडिया में 50 रुपए इधर उधर कर दोगे we're gone, right? With the celebrity brand, everybody thought, you know, celebrity है तो 1000 रुपए का face wash होना चाहिए. Celebrity आप co-founder हो. Consumer doesn't care. And it was, and we're blessed to have Kriti being a very solid partner. We and Kriti could come to that page very, very fast. It is not about who the co-founder is. You can't
Right.
price the brand basis the co-founder. You need to price the brand basis the consumer.
Correct.
Price it right. Package it right. Packaging plays a very important role, the way we discuss, experience, etc., etc. But it needs to deliver the message. It needs to create experience. Packaging से होनी चाहिए. Platform, GTM, D2C, etc., etc. And promotions. Just make sure this waterfall of 6 P's is stitched right. You would be able to differentiate. You would be able to cut the clutter. Now, promotion में ऐसा होगा कि आप वो basic meta marketing नहीं कर रहे होगे. What you would be doing is you would be going in front of the camera yourself and creating organic content around it, while not hiring influencers. While you would be saying कि यार मैं WhatsApp channel बना दूंगा, मैं Instagram पे broadcast बना दूंगा और वहीं से sales drive करूंगा because वहां पर conversion 15% आ रहा है. Meta में तो 2.5% 4%. Right? Your promotion strategy can be different. Your GTM can be different. But fundamentally, proposition and product में बहुत सारा time लगाना पड़ेगा आपको. And if you get that 6 C's stitched well, at a promotional level, आपको 50% discount नहीं चलाना पड़ेगा. Because you've got the price right, you've got the proposition right, you've got the need type right. So I think 10 साल बाद, 10 साल पहले, 20 साल बाद, ये 6 P's I think valid रहेंगे. It's just that the format might change. उस समय WhatsApp और बड़ा हो सकता है, कोई और नया सोशल मीडिया आ सकता है. But price, right product, right proposition, right packaging would always जैसे हमारे लिए Hyphen में interestingly packaging worked out really well. Outside all the other things, everybody thought Kriti Sanon है तो 1000 रुपए का face wash बेचेंगे because शायद बाकी celebrities करते हैं. I said product में जो पड़ा है, जो डाला है high quality product के लिए, packaging में ज़्यादा पैसे नहीं लगाए हमने, usable बनाया, सुंदर बनाया. But at the end of the day, this face wash cannot exceed 350 rupees because the face wash delivers 350 rupees की value.
Right.
If we make 1000 rupees का face wash which can deliver 1000 rupees की value, बना देंगे, price कर देंगे. So I think 6 P's is where one needs to focus and keep on hammering on the differentiation.
I think the variables will be fixed. Only the equation ka overall thing will change.
Ha.
Absolutely. So on that note, thank you so much for spending the time with us.
No, thank you so much
It's been a pleasure to host you.